The year was 1978, and 15-year-old Whitney Houston stood backstage at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, clutching a notebook filled with lyrics and vocal exercises. Her mother, Cissy Houston, had just finished performing, and Whitney was waiting in the wings when she heard it. That sound. The sound that seemed impossible for a human voice to make. Minnie Riperton was rehearsing for her evening performance, and her 5-octave range was filling every corner of the historic venue. But it wasn't just the range that stopped Whitney in her tracks. It was the whistle register, those impossibly high notes that sounded more like birdsong than human vocals. Whitney had heard "Lovin' You" on the radio dozens of times, but hearing Minnie live was different. The whistle notes weren't just high. They were crystalline, effortless, floating above the music like something from another world. "You must be Cissy's daughter," a warm voice said behind her. Whitney turned to find Minnie Riperton herself, smiling despite the obvious exhaustion in her eyes. Whitney didn't know it then, but Minnie was already battling the breast cancer that would take her life just months later. This was her final tour, though she kept performing through the pain. "Yes, ma'am," Whitney managed, suddenly shy. "I'm Whitney." "I've heard about you," Minnie said, her voice kind. "Your mother says you have quite a voice yourself." Whitney felt her cheeks warm. "Not like yours, Miss Riperton. Those high notes you sing, the whistle register. How do you do that? I can sing high, but not like you." Minnie's smile grew softer, tinged with something Whitney couldn't quite identify. Later she would understand it was the look of someone who knew their time was limited, trying to pass on every lesson they could. "Come with me," Minnie said, leading Whitney to a quiet corner backstage. "Let me show you something." They sat down on an old wooden bench, and Minnie placed her hand gently on Whitney's shoulder. "First, let me ask you something," Minnie said. "When you sing high notes, what do you do?" Whitney thought for a moment. "I push harder. I use more air. I try to reach up there with my chest voice." Minnie nodded knowingly. "That's what most singers do. That's what's natural. But the whistle register, it's completely counterintuitive. To go higher, you have to get smaller. To reach those notes, you have to let go of all that power." She demonstrated, starting with a full voice note and gradually transitioning up, up, up into that ethereal whistle register. Whitney watched in amazement as Minnie's throat seemed to barely move, yet these impossibly high sounds emerged. "Try it," Minnie encouraged. Whitney took a breath and attempted to replicate what she'd seen. She started strong, her natural power evident even at 15. The lower notes were gorgeous, rich, full, controlled. But when she tried to transition into the whistle register, her voice cracked and broke. She tried again, this time approaching it differently. She lightened her voice earlier, tried to float up into the register the way Minnie had. But instead of that crystalline whistle tone, her voice just thinned out and disappeared. "More air," Whitney muttered to herself, trying a third time. This attempt was even worse. The effort was visible in her face, her neck tensing, her jaw tight. The sound that emerged wasn't musical at all. It was strained and uncomfortable. "I can't do it," Whitney said, disappointment heavy in her voice. "I don't understand. I can hit high notes. Why can't I do this?" Minnie gently touched Whitney's throat. "Feel how tense you are? That's the problem. The whistle register requires complete relaxation. But here's what I'm watching happen, baby. You're so focused on making that whistle sound that you're forgetting about the beautiful sound you already made." "What do you mean?" Whitney asked. "Those first notes you sang," Minnie explained, "before you tried to whistle. Those were stunning. The tone, the power, the control. I heard you navigate through your entire middle range with ease. Do you know how rare that is? Most singers have a break between their chest voice and head voice. You don't. It's seamless." Whitney looked down. "But that's just normal singing. The whistle register is special." "No, baby," Minnie said firmly. "What you just did is special. The whistle register is a trick. A beautiful trick, sure, but it's still a trick. What you have is a foundation, and foundations are what careers are built on." Minnie took both of Whitney's hands in hers. "Listen to me, baby. Listen carefully, because this might be the most important thing anyone ever tells you about singing." Whitney looked up, meeting Minnie's eyes. "You don't need the whistle register," Minnie said firmly. Whitney blinked in confusion. "But you just—" "I know what I just showed you," Minnie interrupted gently. But here's what you need to understand. You know why I use the whistle register? Whitney shook her head. Because my chest voice is weak, Minnie explained. My power in the middle range isn't strong. So I developed my head voice and my whistle register to compensate. I had to find another way to be special, because I couldn't belt like some singers can. She squeezed Whitney's hands. But you have something I've never had. You have power. I heard you warming up earlier. That chest voice of yours could knock down walls. Your mid-range is incredible. You have what I've always wanted. But the whistle register, Whitney started. The whistle register is impressive, Minnie said. But you know what's more impressive? Control. And baby, you already have it. You can whisper and you can roar, all in the same breath. You can transition from soft to powerful seamlessly. That's not training. That's pure talent. Whitney was quiet, processing this unexpected lesson. Here's the truth nobody talks about, Minnie continued, her voice taking on an urgency that Whitney would remember for the rest of her life. Being a great singer isn't about hitting the highest note. It's about control. It's about making musical choices. You can already do something that's rarer than whistle tones. What's that? Whitney asked. Mixed voice mastery, Minnie said. You can blend your chest voice and head voice so smoothly that people can't tell where one ends and the other begins. You can sing the same phrase powerfully or delicately, and both will be equally beautiful. That's artistry. That's what separates good singers from great ones. Minnie stood up and Whitney could see the pain flash across her face. The cancer was always there, always hurting. Don't waste time trying to copy my whistle register, Minnie said. Don't waste time trying to be me or Aretha or anyone else. Master your own instrument. Your power is your gift. Your control is your artistry. Together, they'll make you unstoppable. But what if people say I should be able to hit the whistle notes? Whitney asked. What if they compare me to you? Minnie laughed softly. Baby, let me tell you something. In a few years, people are going to be comparing everyone else to you. They're going to ask other singers why they can't belt like Whitney Houston, why they don't have your control, your power, your range. She placed a hand on Whitney's cheek. You have 3 octaves of usable, powerful voice. That's more valuable than 5 octaves, where only one is strong. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Whitney nodded slowly, beginning to grasp the wisdom behind Minnie's words. I'm telling you that your strength is your strength, Minnie said. Don't make it your weakness by chasing someone else's gifts. I can whistle. You can thunder. Both are beautiful. Both are valid. But if you spend your career trying to whistle like me, you'll never thunder like Whitney Houston. They talked for another hour that night. Minnie shared stories about navigating the music industry, about staying true to yourself when everyone wants you to be something else, about the difference between impressive and meaningful. One more thing, Minnie said as they prepared to part ways. When you become famous, and you will, remember this conversation. Remember that the young singers looking up to you will be just like you were tonight. They'll want to copy what you do, and you'll need to tell them the same thing I'm telling you. Don't copy me. Find your own voice. Whitney hugged Minnie tightly, not knowing it would be the last time she'd see her mentor alive. Minnie Riperton passed away on July 12, 1979. Whitney was 16 years old. The news came on a Tuesday morning. Whitney was at home getting ready for a rehearsal with her mother's choir when Sissy walked into her room with tears in her eyes. Baby, Sissy said softly, sitting on the edge of Whitney's bed. I just heard from a friend in Los Angeles. Minnie Riperton passed away last night. Whitney froze, her hairbrush suspended mid-stroke. What? No, that can't be right. I'm so sorry, honey. I know you looked up to her. Whitney sat down heavily, her mind racing back to that night at the Apollo. Minnie's warm smile, her gentle hands, the way she'd taken time to teach a starstruck 15-year-old instead of just brushing her off. She was only 31, Whitney whispered. Mama, she was so young. Sissy held her daughter as Whitney cried. She left behind beautiful music, baby. And from what you told me, she left you with something valuable too. Whitney pulled back, wiping her eyes. She taught me not to be her. She taught me to be me. That's a precious gift, Sissy said. Whitney walked to her dresser and pulled out the notebook where Minnie had written her message. She read the words again. Your voice will change the world. Don't change it to sound like anyone else. I'm going to make her proud, Whitney said, her voice stronger now. I'm going to do exactly what she said. I'm going to master my own instrument. I know you will, baby, Sissy said. That night, Whitney couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Minnie, about their conversation, about the gift of wisdom that had been given to her. At 2 a.m., she got out of bed, went to the piano, and sang. She sang Lovin' You, Minnie's signature song. But she didn't try to copy Minnie's whistle register. Instead, she sang it in her own voice, with her own power and control. She sang it as a tribute, but also as a promise to honor Minnie's lesson by being authentically herself. The lesson lived on. In 1990, during a magazine interview, Whitney was asked about whistle tones. The journalist had just mentioned Mariah Carey's impressive whistle register and wanted to know why Whitney didn't showcase that technique. Whitney smiled, the same smile Minnie had given her 12 years earlier. People ask me that all the time, Whitney said. Why don't you use whistle tones like Mariah? Can you hit those notes? And the truth is, I can. I can do whistle register. I just choose not to. The interviewer looked surprised. Why not? Because of something Minnie Riperton taught me when I was 15 years old, Whitney explained. She taught me that being a great singer isn't about proving you can hit the highest note. It's about control. It's about making artistic choices. Whitney leaned forward, passion evident in her voice. My gift is in the transitions. I can go from a whisper to a belt in one breath. I can sing soft and then powerful, all in the same phrase. That's my whistle register, the control I have over my entire range. She continued. Minnie had 5 octaves, but she told me that my 3 octaves of usable power were more valuable, because I can sing any note in my range at any dynamic level. Piano, forte, everything in between. That's control. That's artistry. What did Minnie tell you exactly? The journalist asked, clearly moved. Whitney's eyes grew distant, remembering. She told me, don't waste time trying to copy my whistle register. Master your own instrument. And she was right. I spent my career developing my power, my control, my ability to make each note count. Not chasing someone else's gifts. She paused, emotion creeping into her voice. Minnie was dying when she told me this. She knew she didn't have much time left. And instead of just showing off her whistle register, she used that time to teach a 15-year-old girl something that would shape her entire career. That's legacy. The interview was published, and a new generation of singers read Whitney's words. They stopped asking why she didn't use whistle tones and started studying her control, her power, her transitions. In vocal studios across America, teachers began using Whitney's explanation as a teaching tool. It's not about how high you can sing, they tell their students. It's about control over your entire range. Years later, when Whitney performed I Will Always Love You, that lesson was evident in every note. The song didn't need whistle tones. It needed power. It needed control. It needed the ability to build from intimate to explosive. And Whitney delivered all of that. The bridge of that song, the part where she builds and builds before that final triumphant note, became iconic not because it was the highest note ever sung, but because of the control she displayed in getting there. That's what Minnie had been trying to teach her that night in 1978. In 2012, when Whitney passed away, her daughter Bobby Christina found a notebook in her mother's belongings. Inside were vocal exercises, song lyrics, and a single page that made Bobby cry. It was dated 1978 and titled Minnie's Lesson. Whitney had written, Today, Minnie Riperton taught me that I don't need to whistle to be special. I don't need to copy anyone. My power is my gift. My control is my art. She said in a few years, people will compare others to me. I don't know if that will happen, but I know this. I will never forget what she taught me today. I will honor her by being the best Whitney Houston I can be. Not the best Minnie Riperton copy, the best me. Below that, in Minnie's handwriting, she had signed Whitney's notebook that night, were these words to Whitney. Your voice will change the world. Don't change it to sound like anyone else. Trust your gift. Master your power. The world needs your voice, not a copy of mine. Minnie Riperton, Apollo Theater, 1978. Today, vocal coaches teach the Riperton-Houston principle, the idea that mastering your natural gifts is more valuable than copying someone else's techniques. Young singers learn that Whitney Houston could have used whistle register. She had the capability, but she chose power and control instead. She chose to be herself, and in doing so, she became exactly what many predicted, the singer everyone else gets compared to. The backstage conversation that night lasted just 1 hour, but it shaped an entire career and influenced generations of vocalists. Minnie Riperton's whistle notes made her famous, but her wisdom, shared with a 15-year-old girl who would become the voice, might be her greatest legacy. Sometimes the best lesson isn't how to do something, it's why you shouldn't even try. And sometimes the greatest gift a teacher can give a student is permission to be themselves.